Inside America's Boardrooms, the informational show for board members and corporate secretaries. Brought to you with knowledge partners NASDAQ, the Center for Audit Quality, and PwC. Along with content contributors Equilar, Meridian Compensation Partners, Wilson Sonsini Goodrich and Rosati, Donnelly Financial Solutions, and the Society for Corporate Governance.
Welcome to this edition of Inside America's Boardrooms. I'm TK Kerstetter, the CEO of Boardroom Resources and the editor-at-large at Corporate Board Member Magazine. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the show. This week's show is going to be a little different. We are shooting it from the studios of the Conference Board here in New York, and we're having the opportunity to work with the Conference Board Governance Center. And joining me to talk about should current non-CEO C-suite officers serve on outside boards is Doug Chia, who is the Executive Director of the Conference Board Governance Center.
Yeah.
Welcome, Doug.
All right, thank you. Great to be back.
So, first of all, let me tell the audience that they better get used to this face, okay? We've decided on the show that there's always some difficult topics to talk about. And it really is helpful to have somebody that has your background as the former corporate secretary at Johnson & Johnson. Now you're the executive director of the Conference Board Governance Center. We've had debates in the past, so I think it provides a platform to have a good exchange about that. And this is a great topic to start on. So what sparked this topic, though, was Equilar, the compensation and governance data and solutions firm, had done a study on CFOs and the impact that they had when sitting CFOs sat on outside boards. And they had groups of sitting on outside boards, sitting on one board, and sitting on two or more. And the study, the results of the study, which you and I read, showed that the more boards a CFO sat on, the lower the total shareholder return was for their sitting company, their current company. So while we know that these studies don't necessarily reflect individual situations, it did create a situation that was worth some discussion. So let me start by asking you what sort of struck you when you read the results of that survey?
Well, let's see. I mean, I really like the work that Equilar does, and I really admire David Chun for what he's created there. In terms of this particular study, I thought this study was probably, not as much spark there as the title would suggest. They say CFO on boards, higher pay, lower performance. The way I read the data was really, CFOs on boards, slightly higher pay for, almost even performance. So I think that they created a headline to really draw attention to the report. So there's a lot I could say about the data and the methodology, but I think what it does is, like you said, it draws attention to this question of insiders other than a company's CEO serving on outside boards, and is there some kind of does that work somehow to the detriment of their primary employer? This report does not talk about whether having a sitting CFO on your own company's board, enhances the performance of that company, that board's company. So I don't think that this study really kind of got to proved the thesis, because I think it is logical to think, all right, if someone sits, you have a primary job, you sit on a couple outside boards, that's going to take away time from doing your primary job, kind of create this question of where do your loyalties lie, and that probably leads to lower performance for your own personal scope of responsibilities. So I'm not sure this really proved what it was trying to show, but like I said, it raises a very important question.
Yeah, and my first reaction was, as soon as I went to the chart that showed the performance of 2 or more, okay?
Yeah.
No surprise to me, okay? First of all, I like when Equilar does this kind of research, because at least it may not be something that there's a direct correlation to, but it's something that you should take a look at. I didn't need to see this study, though, to know that a sitting CFO probably shouldn't sit on 2 outside boards.
Yeah.
I mean, that part right away only supported, my feelings relative to that. So
Yeah.
what the study did do, though, is it opened up a bigger question.
Yeah.
And that bigger question is, should non-CEOs in their current positions in the C-suite serve on outside boards? So I'll pass that back to you. What's your general feeling? What does your experience from Johnson & Johnson show you as well?
Well, I think, it's not just experience from Johnson & Johnson. It's kind of like, talking to other corporate secretaries and board members in terms of kind of their observations and experiences as people in the boardroom on a regular basis. First of all, there's already debate in terms of whether a sitting CEO should sit on another company's board, and if so, how many? And now it's kind of determined by some that, or I guess the consensus is that 1 other board is probably the max that CEO really has time for. I think when you go lower down in the organization, a similar type of analysis, but it's really, you're looking at, all right, how much time is this really going to consume? And for a public company board, it kind of varies from quite a bit of time to extremely a lot of time.
Yeah, and one of the problems is you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. You can't control that.
There's no way of telling how much time is going to be necessary.
Yeah. So if you sit on a public company board, everything's smooth, and then one day there's there's a CEO crisis, there's some kind of government investigation, some kind of public PR crisis, all of a sudden you as a board member have to be kind of, they have emergency board meetings, they have multiple board meetings, committees, etc. And you as a board member, you have loyalty to your primary employer, but you also have fiduciary duties to, that particular company. So it's kind of like, well, how do you weigh that? I think most people say, look, your primary job is your primary job, but that's you do have competing competing interests with a finite amount of hours in the day, but you balance that with the positives. So for that individual, in this case a CFO, if that person is being developed for higher positions or broader scope, a board seat, having that board experience is seen as a real developmental opportunity. I think that's true. The other part is knowledge. You sit on another board, you bring certain knowledge back to the company, not in terms of the substance of what that company does or any kind of competitive information, but broader knowledge in terms of how other companies are governed and seeing that from the inside, and seeing the inner workings of how other companies work as a means of comparison. So you're not just looking at benchmarking data to compare, you're looking at actual experience. And so, but the other potential downside are conflicts, in terms of, like I said, with time conflicts, also with conflicts of opportunities. Now, obviously, you shouldn't be sitting on a company that's kind of in the same space, but there might be times when the other board is pursuing some kind of a transaction with a company, and your company's got dealings with that company, and it gets tricky there. So,
well, I really don't want to make the mistake that we're opposed, by the sounds of it, that we're opposed, this is a tremendous opportunity for individuals to learn what it's like to sit on the other side of the table. And the breadth of knowledge that that opportunity provides is worth the consideration at a company for someone to have that experience. There's a two-level approval process. The first is the CEO. The CEO has to feel comfortable. The company should be vetted. There has to be some expectation about the amount of time, even in a worst-case situation. And then there's the board's feeling about what's the situation at the current company, how much time is going to be needed by that C-suite person. So, it obviously has to be taken on a case-by-case basis. But, I'm still, with all that we talked about, all the risks, I'm still a proponent of happen, but it really has to be reviewed and vetted pretty hard because you don't want to find yourself in a difficult situation. Yeah,
it really has to be thought through. Some companies go so far as to look for opportunities for their executives to sit on an outside board. So clearly there's value there. I think here the importance is, internal governance, having a written policy that is well articulated, very clear to everybody. Okay, here is the policy. It might differ for public company boards or for-profit boards versus not-for-profit. And then the approval process in terms of, all right, here's who you have to notify. Here's who has kind of like the ultimate say in terms of whether or not a subordinate may serve on that board. I think in most cases below the CEO level, it's really the CEO and the general counsel who kind of have the ultimate say. Just in general with a lot of management decisions below the CEO level, the board defers to the CEO to manage their individual direct reports.
Yeah. Well, here's a topic that I think we're pretty much on the same page to. And Doug, I wanted to thank you for having us, first of all, as guests here at the conference board.
Our pleasure.
And we look forward to more friendly debates about topics that are tough for boards. And that will conclude this edition of Inside America's Boardrooms. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back again next week when we take another look at a critical topic that'll help you be a better board member or committee member. So we'll see you then.
Join us again next week for Inside America's Boardrooms. Brought to you with Knowledge Partners, NASDAQ, the Center for Audit Quality, and PwC. Along with content contributors Equilar, Meridian Compensation Partners, Wilson Sonsini Goodrich and Rosati, Donnelly Financial Solutions, and the Society for Corporate Governance.